Hi everyone, so today I'm here to talk about the sometimes harsh reality of living abroad. Now, living abroad is an amazing experience and I would definitely suggest to everyone to do it at least once if they can. It really changes your outlook on life. You learn a lot of things about yourself, about other people, other countries, but I feel like most people only talk about the fun parts, especially people who go on like a student exchange, which I think is a completely different experience from actually moving somewhere for a longer period of time to not only like to study but like to work and do all the life stuff basically. So yeah, today I thought I would touch upon some of the things that are maybe not as great about living abroad. From talking to my friends, I do know that most people who move abroad do experience all those things as well. The first thing that you are faced with when you move abroad is that you have to learn everything from scratch. You basically have to build up your life from scratch. And I don't mean just like finding a new flat and finding a new job and decorating everything, but I mean like just learning how the whole system functions, from how to manage your taxes, how the healthcare functions, all the way to the most basic things such as where to buy towels and where to buy bedding and things like that. I know it sounds stupid, but when you move to another country that, for example, doesn't have the same stores as yours, just basic things like that can be a bit of a challenge, especially if you don't know anyone in this new country that can like help you out and constantly like serve you with all this information. Just like basic day-to-day things that you wouldn't even think of in your home country, I feel like can really stress you out, are really time consuming, really exhausting, and just takes a bit of time to get used to them and like to take them as your own, such as, I don't know, like a new currency, for example. When I first moved here, I was like recalculating everything into euros. Now I don't do it anymore. One thing that was new to me here was metric system as well. They use like pounds and inches and miles rather than kilometers. This is something that I still kind of struggle with, to be honest. And for a lot of people, language can be a struggle as well. Now, I was fortunate enough to speak English. I studied English, so I like to think my English is pretty fluent. So yeah, language never really was a problem for me particularly, but I know that a lot of people struggle as well. And it's also like one of the reasons why when Brexit happened and I was like thinking about like either moving back home or moving to maybe Germany, I kind of like didn't want to do that, like to move to yet another country, to start everything from scratch, and also having to learn a whole new language at like the age of 26. Saying that, I do actually want to learn German and maybe a couple of other languages as well, but I would prefer to do it as a fun hobby rather than having it to learn to kind of like, survive day-to-day life in another country that I would move to. Moving on to the second point. For me, something that was really hard, or is still really hard, is not having a security net. When you live back home, you have family, friends around you. If something happens, you can always ask someone for help, for advice. Whereas when you move to another country, if you move somewhere alone, like I did, and don't know anyone, it can be really scary. Like just being sick and not having anyone to like maybe go get you medicine, or if something more serious happens, to go with you to the hospital and things like that. And I don't know, just like basic things like having someone to help you move and stuff like that, because moving in London is the thing, you move all the time if you live in London usually. Yeah, not having this security net, if something happens, I guess, if you get into like financial trouble, like it's scary, basically. So yeah, that's definitely one of the downsides. One of the things that I think is also common if you move somewhere and don't know whether you're gonna stay there, so if you move somewhere just temporary, or if you're in a bit of a limbo when you don't really know if you're gonna stay or if you're gonna go back to your home country, I feel like you can't really settle down. I'm gonna give you a really ridiculous example right now, but this is something that's happening basically to me. So when I moved here, like for almost 4 years ago now, 3.5 years ago, every time I moved, I didn't really want to buy any like decorations that I would love to have to make, you know, this space feel more like home. But like at the same time, you just think about, oh, when I'm gonna move back, I'm gonna leave everything here and I'm gonna like waste so much money on things that I can't bring back. That's just something that like constantly goes through my mind. So I feel like I can never settle down. Like for 3.5 years, I've been wanting to buy plants for my room. I still have 0 plants. Not because I wouldn't be able to take care of them, but because I simply am always in this limbo of not knowing where I'm gonna live next year, like year after year. And every time I see a plant and I want to buy a plant, I'm like, well, I'm not gonna buy a plant just to have it for like a couple of months and then throw it away, you know? So yeah, this is like a really silly example, but you probably know what I mean when I say like you can't really fully settle down in your mind. The next point is very obvious, but it's probably something that you don't think about before you are moving abroad. It's that you're gonna miss very important events back home and life will kind of pass you by. So when you go home, of course, you know, a lot of things have happened in your life, you have changed, but I feel like when I go home, I expect things to be the same back home, but the reality is things have changed back home too. So it's a little bit weird, especially for example in my case. Right after I moved, one of my relatives had a baby and I didn't see that baby up until he was a toddler. So coming home and imagining you're gonna see a baby and it's actually a toddler is really weird. And then next time coming home, you see that toddler already in school. And you kind of like miss out on these big important chunks of your family and your friends' lives. It just kind of, I don't know, it's really mind-boggling to me. Sometimes it just sucks that you have to miss important events like weddings, anniversaries, birthdays, especially when everyone is hanging out and sending you pictures and you're alone in your room depressed just looking at photos of everyone else having fun. But yeah, that's one of the realities of living abroad. Loneliness is another thing. Again, especially if you move somewhere alone, on your own, without like a partner or another family member. I feel like making friends as an adult is hard enough, because you're not in this like system like in school when you just go in and you know that you're gonna meet people and like make friends. As an adult, it's a little bit different, especially if you work mostly like on your own and you don't work in this like big company where you can like hang out with your colleagues, for example. Yeah, just like making friends in another country is quite a struggle, especially with locals, I find, because most of them already have their groups of people. You know, when you're like an adult, you usually have like a tight group of people that you formed friendships with over time, and those groups of people can be quite close. I feel like especially here in the UK and in Slovenia as well, to be honest. But yeah, it's really hard to make new friends, especially with locals. Most of my friends here are actually fellow expats, just because I feel like we are more open to meeting new people, because we do need people in our lives, you know what I mean? You can be like the biggest introvert, but you're always gonna crave being like a part of some sort of social circle. But yeah, it's like hard to initially meet new people. Like once you do and they introduce you to their friends, you know, the ball gets rolling and everything's a lot easier, but just getting there is hard. I personally really struggle with loneliness still, even after 3.5 years. I'm fine on the weekends when I'm hanging out with my friends, but during the week I do have to admit I really struggle, because sometimes like I don't see anyone for the whole week and I don't speak to anyone for the whole week, and it's just, I don't know, it's weird, it's not nice, and it's probably the reason why I speak to my parents on Skype or on Viber, you know, every single day, because otherwise I would probably go mental. So yeah, I would say that loneliness is definitely, like for me, the hardest part of living abroad. Speaking of friends, one thing that happens really often when you move abroad is that you lose a lot of friends from back home. This has happened to me because, you know, life got busy. I was trying to build up my life from scratch. I didn't really have time to reach out to every single one of them like all the time. Their lives went on and I was no longer in their day-to-day life. So it just happens that you slowly but surely, usually, unless the friendship is like really, really strong, you just drift apart. Sometimes it's a good thing because you really realize who your true friends are. I've actually made some friends from back home after I moved here that I now speak to on like a daily or a weekly basis, who I hadn't even hung out with when I still lived in Slovenia, which is a little bit bizarre. But yeah, it's like those people that I have something in common with that I now talk to on a regular basis, even though they live 1,000 miles away. Which just goes to show you that if you do want to maintain a relationship with someone, you can. You just have to like put an effort in it, basically. Another thing regarding friendships is that when you make friendships in the country you move to with other expats, I feel like those friendships are really strong. But again, because everyone is coming from, you know, another country, and a lot of people end up moving abroad back home, with those who do move back, you again drift apart. So if you're gonna move abroad, just prepare for a lot of drifting. Moving on, the next thing is that you have no one to get excited with about events that are specific maybe to you personally from the past, or maybe to your nation. Again, I'm gonna give you a very weird example. I feel like I always come up with the most random things, but anywho, so a couple of months ago, I feel like that was like 6 months ago now. No, I don't know. Basically last year, end of last year, there was this thing called Eurobasket. If you're a basketball fan, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's basically like a European basketball championship. And because a lot of my family members and friends have been strongly involved with basketball, consequently this is like one of the sports that I'm also mentally invested in. So when Eurobasket happens and Slovenia won, which was an incredible achievement, and like the whole country celebrated, it was literally insane. Everyone, you know, back home was able to share their happiness with people around them, and they went to like all these parties, whereas I was sat here in my room crying from happiness, but like having no one to talk to and like to be excited about this with me. I know it sounds weird, but I really missed being a part of that like euphoria in person. Speaking of sports and stuff like that, one thing that also bugs me is that I can't follow like the programs that I used to like back home and were like a part of my not day-to-day routine, but you know, were like a part of my lifestyle, I guess. Like basketball is one of those examples. When I tried to watch Eurobasket, I couldn't here in the UK because there were no broadcasts, obviously. I was like really upset at one point, and then thank God I found this Slovenian guy on Facebook that was doing like Facebook lives, basically streaming every game, so I was able to watch it. And another similar situation I was in recently was when I wanted to watch the Winter Olympics, which by the way really aren't a thing here in the UK. I've learned like nobody watches Winter Olympics here, whereas Slovenia is a country that's really good in winter sports. We have like a lot of good athletes, so obviously I really wanted to watch their races, and I just couldn't because there was nowhere to watch them, and every broadcast from back home is like blocked in the UK, so I can't like log on to the Slovenian site and watch it there because it just doesn't work. So yeah, these are the kind of things that sometimes are really annoying because you do want to stay in touch with your like your home country basically, and the culture there, but eventually you just fall out of the loop. You're just basically cut off from your own culture in some sort of sense. Same goes with like food. Sometimes you really crave certain foods and you just, you know, can't have them. So yeah, that's one downside as well. Next thing on the list is bureaucracy. Oh my god. I've had a lot of bureaucracy related meltdowns. It all started with getting a bank account, which no bank wanted to give me for some reason. Like just a normal bank account with like a debit card. It was a freaking nightmare. It took me like 2 to 3 months to finally get a UK debit card and like a bank account that I can be paid into when I worked. It was ridiculous. Then the next thing I struggled with was changing the residency, because obviously you can't be a resident of 2 countries. You have to choose one. So when I moved to the UK, I became a resident of the UK. But obviously my home country still wanted my taxes, even though I didn't live there anymore. I didn't like use healthcare over there, so you have to go through all this process to like officially change your residency, to like not pay double taxes. So that's like one big hurdle that a lot of us have to go through. Slovenia is especially complicated. And then there's also changing address on all your identification every single time you move. Again, this might also be just like a Slovenian thing, but technically speaking, along with changing your official address, you're basically also required to change your address in your passport, on your ID, on your driving license, just everywhere. Right now I have a Slovenian passport with my British address, which you know is fine, but like I said before, if you live in London, you move a lot, and changing your address in your passport and everything else every single year or every 6 months is just the most ridiculous thing ever. I do understand you need to notify someone to change the records of like your actual permanent address, which, you know, obviously it makes a lot of sense, and yes, everyone should do that. But getting your passport reprinted every 6 months to a year is ridiculous, especially because I know that some other nations don't even have an address in their passport. So, you know, it's obviously not an essential thing to have in there. Right now I'm actually dealing with another bureaucratic nightmare because my driving license is expiring in September. In Slovenia, again, so stupid. If you're wearing glasses, your driving license basically expires every 5 years or so, and then you need to go to the doctors to have your eyes checked. Even though if you're wearing glasses, you know that you get your eyes checked more regularly with your, is it called optometrist? You know what I mean? But yeah, you need to go to like the main hospital to get your eyes checked, and then you can get your driving license renewed. But yeah, mine expires in September, and after a lot of dating, I have now found out that I can't get it extended back in Slovenia. I actually need to exchange my Slovenian driver's license for an international UK driving license, which again would be completely fine. But to do that, I have to send a whole lot of paperwork to whatever institution deals with that here in the UK, along with my passport, which they keep for 2 months before you get everything back. So I would basically have to send in my passport and be passportless for 2 freaking months, which is impossible for me because I travel on a pretty regular basis, and sometimes my trips are very spontaneous and last minute, and basically, long story short, I can't be without my passport for 2 months straight. So yeah, that's something that I'm currently dealing with, and I'm not even sure how I'm gonna solve the situation yet. So if you're a Slovenian living in the UK watching this video and had a similar problem in the past, please help me out. And then the last thing is a bit of a morbid one, but it is very true. At the end of the day, moving to another country makes you an immigrant, and you are treated as an immigrant no matter how hard you try to fit in. You're just not treated as an equal, even if you speak the language. And yeah, there's a lot of troubles, I guess, that come along with it, from not being able to get certain jobs because you basically are discriminated based on your nationality. I wouldn't be saying that if it hasn't happened to me before. I was literally told that I'm the perfect candidate but can't get a job in a certain company because I'm foreign. So yeah, at the end of the day, you are an immigrant, you are treated as an immigrant, and you feel as an immigrant. I don't think anyone who moves abroad is ever able to completely blend in. Maybe in some cases, obviously, yes, but I think generally speaking, you always feel a little bit different from the rest. Yeah, and that's it for this video. I don't really have anything else to say. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of things that I could mention as well, but these are just some of the instances that I have noticed come along with moving abroad. If you're an expat yourself, I would love to know what kind of hurdles you had to overcome, and if you can relate to any of the points I mentioned. But yeah, thank you for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!
About to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking.